The 7-Eleven, I know many of them are open 24 hours. Is this one will be open 24 hours as well, or is there some way to have a time limit according to town code that they've got to close by 11?
It's not in the town code.
I don't think there's a time limit on the town code. Is there, Marguerite? No.
So that, I imagine, is a big objection by many of the locals that...
I would rather see it the other way.
Open it in the middle of the night, not during the day. God bless you.
No traffic.
God bless you. Thank you very much for the public comment. It went a good 80 minutes, so thank you. The first topic today during the agenda is the launch ramp at East Lake Drive. Brian, do you want to come up and spend some time on that? Give us some background on it, if you would. Yes, Brian Frank.
Good morning, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. The planning department has done a preliminary or a cursory look at an unopened town road, portion of a town road at the northern end of East Lake Drive.
Let me just give a little background for the public, if I may. I'm sorry to interrupt, because I should have done this to begin with. We had a letter of complaint come in from a citizen that was walking, I believe, their dog on East Lake Drive. They were given a verbal warning at 4 p.m. by a Marine Patrol officer regarding placing items on the beach owned by the town for generations, used by resident families, et cetera, et cetera. They were claiming, along with another person, a vehicle, and they apparently the Marine Patrol interceded. The person at that point obviously thought it was what they considered possibly NIMBY harassment on Marine patrols, and said, by the way, while I'm talking about that down there, that issue, while I'm on the subject, I am aware that there is a 2.6 acre underwater parcel with 100-foot wide access from East Lake Drive, also owned by the town. It is known as, and they gave the tax map citation, right now it can only be accessed by a boat, kayak, or canoe, as there are private underwater parcels that block the access from the current East Lake access. I respectfully request that the town open this area again with restricted parking and a cut path that leads to the water's edge so that the residents of town of East Hampton can access the clam beds on that parcel as well. Right now, because the neighbor has the road access blocked, he has virtually insured himself a private beach at the town's expense. So what we then did is looked at that, came back and looked at that site on the tax map and found that it was listed as town road. We also found it to be listed as an access in the LWRP that this neighbor had a driveway on, and so then we asked the planning department to get involved as far as the property and what can be done with that property. An individual has a driveway on it now, is that correct?
Correct.
A private driveway? Private driveway. Okay. On town property?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so this property is a little over a mile south of the northern end of East Lake Drive and about 750 feet south of the Little Reed Pond Nature Preserve, just to kind of put it in the general location. So it's near the northern end of East Lake Drive. There appear to be 3 different unnamed town roads that extend from East Lake Drive down by the water. The other 2 are farther south, and they are 50 feet wide. This property is 100 feet wide, has about a lot area of roughly 30,000 square feet approximated. That doesn't include the beach. That's about to the beach grass line.
So is that's 300 by 100? Is that 30,000? Is that right?
Yeah, about that.
So it's 300 deep and roughly 100 wide.
It's really more than that if you go all the way down to the water's line. I just roughly, I realized in this memorandum that I prepared that I didn't include a lot area, so I just kind of roughed it out this morning to add that. It does abut a 2+ acre underwater property owned by the town. That tax map number is 7-2-9.4. This is a town road itself, it doesn't have a tax map number, but in the header of the memo, I included the tax map number of the properties on either side of it and the owners of record for those properties. There is a private driveway. If you have it in the memo, you see that the driveway is kind of a J shape or a backwards J shape. And in the hook of that J is a freshwater wetland that looks like it's connected to more extensive wetlands in county parkland. From the town road right-of-way, there's a buried corrugated metal pipe that seems to be buried the length of the property and comes out near the water line, or really below the water line. And that's something long-term, I'm sure, as part of the MS4 program, we'll identify that as a discharge point and come up with a plan for remediating that. But the planning department did an inspection of this property on June 29th and walked the property. It's basically a gently sloping property. There's that wetland in the hook that I mentioned. The upland vegetation is a mix of, there is some native vegetation in there, but a lot of it is non-native and a little bit invasive. There's bamboo, there's wisteria, there's autumn olive. It's not necessarily vegetatively a high-quality upland habitat. There is a nice low barrier dune along the shoreline. A beach that's typical in this section of East Lake Drive and the underwater property that it abuts. The offshore profile is pretty shallow. We have a little bit of bathymetry, well, we have a lot of bathymetry for Lake Montauk.
What's the word?
Bathymetry, the contours of the bottom of the lake. And according to that bathymetry, you don't really get to 3 feet of depth until you're almost 200 feet from the shoreline. We did excuse me?
Is it L-I-T-H, lithimetry?
Bathymetry.
Bathymetry.
B-A-T-H.
B-A-T-H.
And we did review the LWRP, and there are 2 references to this property. Both are fairly vague. One is in the public access. There's a chapter about public access in the LWRP, and this references, this property is referenced kind of loosely along with an underwater land near the East Lake Nature Preserve with a reference for more access. In the future projects section, there is a table, kind of almost bullet points of different accesses around all of the harbors, but in this particular area, Lake Montauk. Again, the nature reserve property is referenced along with this property with the term launch ramp. There's not a lot of text to support that in terms of what type of launch ramp for what types of vessels or necessarily what segment of the populace would best be served by it. But judging by the offshore profile, there does appear to be submerged aquatic vegetation nearby. I do think the town hatchery has seeded near there. The shallow depths, I think, raises some questions about the type of vessels, larger vessels, vessels that might have a deeper draft or really motorized vessel that I think you would want to scrutinize if you wanted to open it up on that level.
But it's good clamming.
It's good.
I would assume it's good clamming
But
offshore.
paddle boards and kayaks, it's fine, right?
Something low impact, a shallow draft that isn't going to disturb the bottom land, its vegetation, or the invertebrate life that's under there, I think would be a better candidate for consideration than something more intense.
Well, if I might just ask you, the purpose of your presentation is to guide the board on considerations regarding increasing public access.
You can put it that way.
Okay.
This is kind of a preliminary assessment of what's there. For example, I didn't include it in the memo, but in one of those other 50-foot wide road accesses, I'm familiar with that access. I've been in there before. I was in there in the beginning of this summer doing the wetland delineation at a request of the adjoining property. And I could just tell you from experience that if you want to do something with that area, there are issues there because wetlands run close to the length of it. So it's half as wide as this. There are wetlands, especially at the south end, and it would be a problem, I think. I think there are more complicated issues in trying to do something with that than, for example, something that's less constrained.
This is 100 feet wide?
Correct.
This question that I have also is how has the property changed as it's